Greetings, friends. This is Chris Batts, your host of the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. In today's episode, I spoke with the elected female leader of an AmLaw 10 law firm. We discussed her journey to the top, her passion for the practice of law, advice for board opportunities, and her love for Texas, and so much more. If you haven't already, please subscribe to this podcast and leave a review on iTunes. We interview corporate defense law firm leaders, partners, general counsel, and legal consultants. You're listening to episode 59 of the Law Firm Leadership Podcast.
Broadcasting from Kansas City, this is the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. In each episode, you'll receive actionable ideas and hear personal leadership stories of both men and women serving as leaders and executives in the legal industry. Enjoy a front row seat as Chris Batts speaks with general counsel, legal consultants, and law firm leaders and law partners at the top corporate defense law firms from around the United States.
Welcome to the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Batts with the Lion Group. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Yvette Ostolaza, Chair-elect of Sidley's Management Committee. Yvette is also a member of Sidley's Executive Committee, the managing partner of the Dallas office, and the global co-leader of the litigation practice. Yvette has developed a national reputation as a versatile lawyer who excels in all aspects of complex, multi-jurisdictional disputes and investigations. Prior to Sidley, she led the complex commercial litigation group and was a member of another management committee. Yvette currently serves on the board of directors of Lionsgate in LA. She also served as the vice chair of Ethics and Investigations Subcommittee of the ABA Corporate Governance Committee, and also served on the board of the directors of the State Bar Association of Texas. As of the many accolades that follow her, I'll mention just a few. Since 2009, Yvette has been ranked as a leading general commercial litigator by Chambers USA and is also a Band 1 lawyer. She was recently named to the 2020 Texas Trailblazers list by Texas Lawyer. She was also selected as one of 20 Women of Excellence honored nationwide by Hispanic Business Magazine. Yvette received her law degree from the University of Miami. Welcome, Yvette, to the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. It's great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Chris. It's great to be here.
Yvette, I can't help but want to just jump right into this amazing story of you being the child of parents from Cuba. Would you please explain to my listeners something I never heard of before, and even though I was raised in South Florida, Operation Peter Pan? Can you give me some color on that?
Well, my parents came ahead. They met actually in the United States, and many Cubans sent their children before the revolution and some during that period of time, and they were in other homes. My mother stayed with family members and my dad with somebody that my grandmother had arranged with. They met in the United States and got married at a very young age. My mom had me when she was 18.
Got it. And so you were raised your whole life basically down in Miami before you graduated law school, correct?
Absolutely. I'm a Miami native and a Floridian. I've now been in Texas since 1991, but I come back and forth between Florida and Texas.
Did you always knew that you were going to go to University of Miami for college?
No. I certainly did not even expect to go to college when I first started. The story is the traditional American story, what makes our country so great, of people that have opportunities. In my family's case, fleeing from a communist regime and coming to America and starting their own business and doing the things that immigrants have done for centuries in our great country. And, as I grew up, I was not expecting to go to college. That didn't seem like something that you could do or afford. But I was fortunate enough that University of Miami gave me an academic scholarship because of my class ranking in high school and my SAT. And I ended up going to college while also working throughout all the 3 years that I went to college. I graduated early.
Wow. And it sounds like family was really important to you because you stayed local for law school too.
I did. I took a break between undergrad and law school. I worked in the airline industry in marketing and sales. I sold the computer systems that at the time Eastern Airlines and later Continental had. I had different territories, worked in Latin America, and at that time stayed in South Florida. When it became time to go to law school, I applied to a couple, got in, and gratefully University of Miami gave me a wonderful academic scholarship, and I decided to stay as a cane. Also was able to work during my time that I was in law school, even though I was going to school during the day.
That's amazing. Why be a lawyer? What struck that for you to want to become a lawyer?
Well, it sort of happened, I would say, organically. I had worked as a summer intern for Miller Brewing Company in Milwaukee because I was a Miller campus rep back when they had those in high school. And in that summer that I spent in Milwaukee, I saw what an in-house lawyer did in advising on advertising, on compliance with the law. I thought that was interesting because I didn't know there were lawyers, as unsophisticated as that sounds, in companies. And then after that, when I started working in the airline business, I got to know more lawyers in corporate America, and I got to know more of them in the community. And I really had enjoyed a class that I had taken in journalism. My undergraduate was in communication and marketing with an emphasis in journalism and sort of the whole area of constitutional law and the intersection with journalism and defamation and libel. And I did well in that class and I loved it. And so it piqued my interest in the legal world. And when I was working in the airlines, I decided to apply to law school. And the rest is history. I loved every minute of law school. I'm one of those weird ones. I know, don't judge me. I'm a legal geek. I loved it. And I tell people, if you don't like law school, try working 18 hours a day before. When I went back to law school, I could just focus on studying and working and having intellectual debates. That was a whole lot of fun, and getting to be with a peer group and doing mock trials and report writing and publishing, I thought was just the best that you could do during that period of my life.
The writing, publishing, and the journalism degree, is that what you said? I'm sorry, for your undergrad?
Yeah, it was in communication, but with an emphasis in journalism. And I wrote for the school paper at the time at the university, freelancing.
It's interesting to see that complement this career that you've had of being a litigator, which is so critical to speech. And do you feel like that was important for you when you kind of crafted your journey in becoming a litigator?
I think that the background in journalism, in writing, and interviewing people and keeping it simple has been an extreme positive into my legal career, and in particular in litigation, because so much of it, you write briefs and you spend time deposing people or interviewing them in connection with an internal review. So that skill set that I learned in undergraduate certainly translated quite well to being a lawyer. The other thing that translated is I was in marketing and sales and did quite a bit of cold calling. And that translated so well to the business of law, is understanding P&L, understanding sales, understanding the way that business people think.
You ended up in New York for your first job. Is that correct? Did I see that correctly?
No, I started in Dallas, Texas, because I met my husband as a summer associate. He did not start at the same firm I did, but we interned at a firm. He was a Texan. It was 1991. He was a year ahead of me in law school. He already had a permanent job. So I decided to interview in the Dallas market, thinking that I would be here for 3 or 4 years. And the Texas market, from a legal standpoint, was so strong that we decided to build our family and stay here, and have been here ever since. But I'm also admitted in the state of New York, which is probably what you saw. I'm admitted both in Texas and in New York.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. So you married into Texas and you've been in Texas ever since.
He was definitely born in New York, but he's been in Texas since he was a little boy. So he's a Texan.
Tell me about this road that you've been on, because, as I look at Chambers USA and the comments of, third parties speaking about you and your abilities in the courtroom and in the boardroom, Yvette, is extraordinary. Talk to me about your journey as a litigator and helping your clients navigate very sticky situations.
Look, I'm honored and I'm humbled by the comments that I see. I read them, and I can't believe the girl from Miami is getting comments like that. If you had told me that at the age of middle school or high school, that's where I'd be, I would have said you're crazy. But looking back with the benefit of hindsight is the immigrant experience and growing up. Spanish was my first language, and being very observant of human nature and of people translated in sales. And what I would say is that being a consensus builder, but also not being afraid to ask, to constantly ask, has been really good for me. And in terms of negotiating skills that I learned in sales, have been wonderful in terms of negotiating on behalf of my clients.
Hi, listeners. This is Chris Batts, legal recruiter and owner of The Lion Group. My team and I place legal and compliance talent around the United States and are known for our level of communication, speed, and strong track record. If you're an employer hiring your first attorney or first general counsel, or adding talent to your corporate legal department or compliance team, we should talk. Also, if you're a corporate defense law partner or group wondering about your options for a lateral move, we should also talk. Every aspect of our process is confidential, fast, and thorough. Contact us by going to our website, findthelions.com. Or you can text the word headhunter to the number 44222 and then complete the web form and we'll follow up with you shortly. Now back to the show. Clearly, you have this extraordinary career of leadership roles, and even your current roles are several that you're still managing people in charge of things. Has leadership always come to you, management and responsibility, from a young age?
Yes. And I never really asked for it. I'd like to tell people just act like a leader and the title will come. And I didn't realize that's what I was doing. I was just trying to do whatever the best that I did at anything that I did and to work with other people and to help them. And I was always surprised when somebody would say, do you want this leadership job? And I would say, really? You want me for it? And it really was that way all the way until I was selected to be the chair. I've always been very happy to work with other people and legitimately said, if I got a leadership position, that was great. But if I didn't, that would be fine. I would work with whoever was the leader to make sure that we succeeded. For me, it's about winning for my clients. And I don't mean winning from a litigation standpoint. I mean winning as an organization and however you define that win. And I tell clients that, I tell the colleagues that I work with, what does a win look for you in this context? And I take pride in being able to be in an organization where that's the focus of how do we, win also while having fun. I mean, part of life is enjoying what you do. And I think if you get a career where you enjoy what you do, you make a great living out of it, and it's challenging intellectually where every day is not exactly the same, you're a very fortunate person. And I have landed on a career that those three things have happened. And I'm very grateful for it. And so I'm a big salesperson for the practice of law in BigLaw because I do think that it offers the opportunity to be an owner, to be creative, to not do the same things day in, day out, and also to be very involved in your community like lawyers are able to do, which not every profession has that portion.
So Yvette, you made a lateral move, classic within the partner world in Dallas about 7 years ago, if I see, from your prior firm, and you went to Sidley, and you've been there for 7 years. Were you aware of that kind of activity going on? And was this something that was planned or unexpected for that move?
Unexpected completely. And I was surprised that I made the move. I'm a very loyal person. I sort of start at the same place. I don't like a lot of change when it comes to my day in, day out life in terms of the people I deal with. And I was at a firm that I had been for 21 years since I was a summer associate. I've now been here 8 years this coming month. And I'm so grateful that I made the move, but it was one of those things I wasn't looking. And through chance and circumstance, I ended up meeting up with some folks and I took a meeting through mutual friends, and then the rest is history. And what attracted me to Sidley was, in addition to being a firm that had been around 150 years, Obama's firm and Michelle's firm, and also Mary Todd Lincoln's firm, it had this rich history, the offices and where they were located and the vision that the leadership had for the firm of what it wanted to be was very attractive to me. It was roughly double the size in terms of revenue of the firm that I was in. And I liked the challenge of growing and developing a business. And I also had seen there were a lot of female role models throughout the firm that I really enjoyed meeting. And it was just an opportunity that I couldn't pass up. I also ended up moving with about 50 of my colleagues. And so it still felt like home when I moved.
Well, it was a very historic move. It definitely set ripples in the Texas market. I can almost remember the day how significant that event occurred because I was still recruiting at the time. It's fun to hear 8 years later now, kind of that expression, and now that you're stepping into a pretty important role. I'd love for you to share, Yvette, who is Sidley Austin? Would love for you to tell the audience that.
Sidley is a firm with a rich tradition. It's like I said, it's been over 150 years. And what I love about the firm is the focus on not only talent and results for a client, but teamwork. It's a very collaborative firm. It started, as you know, in the Midwest, and I think it has that Midwestern-friendly hard work ethic, and it's expanded. There was a merger and with a New York firm. And so I love the balance. It's like a good portfolio. We have all the right offices in the right size, and they're all in our major cities. They're large. It's not just one big office with small satellite offices. And that creates for a great hedge, not only worldwide, but also within the US. It was a very attractive platform for me and for my clients. The other thing that I love about Sidley, and we are a top 6 in terms of revenue across, the AM law. And what's interesting to me about that is when you have a firm of that sheer size and that diversity of geography, it makes for a great balanced portfolio where you can represent clients from across the globe and do that really well without having to refer a lot of work. And I was having to refer a lot of work in certain markets where we had not had offices in my past firm, in particular Chicago and Southern California. And then, from a diversity perspective, I felt like Sidley was a step ahead, very committed to DE&I and events in that regard. And I met so many of the women leaders, and I thought that was pretty unique at the time when I was looking at top firms.
DE&I is definitely diversity, equity, and inclusion is front and center now, but you talk about something that they were doing 8 years ago, and that was really important for your move, that there were women represented in leadership roles. Would you just please share your thoughts on the legal profession as it relates to DE&I?
Well, look, we're a licensed profession. And so part of the honor of being licensed is you have to also make sure that you're representative of the communities that you serve. Yeah. And I do think that the profession is making great strides in that area. Sometimes I'd like it to move faster. But I think at the end of the day, because of sort of the birth rates and people going to college and all that, that's sort of lessened, the talent pool on the firms that are going to be winners are going to be firms that are representative of their communities and be able to attract talent independent of their gender, their socioeconomic status, their race, where they're from, LGBTQ community. And I think Sidley is very well positioned. And I think, COVID in particular in the pandemic has been an interesting time for all of us that are running professional services firms because the world has opened up in terms of where you can recruit. Yep. And the winners are going to be people that recruit talent. And that's why I think the DE&I, in addition to just doing good and making sure that we're representing the communities that we deserve to represent, being a licensed profession, it's going to be a game changer for the firms that do it right.
Yvette, let's talk about your new role. And I know that you still have lots of responsibilities with your additional roles that you've had at Sidley. Please explain to my listeners just this process. So you're chairperson-elect. You're going to assume Larry's role in April next year, correct?
Correct.
Okay. What are you up to right now?
In addition to working on the succession planning for the Dallas office, I'm very proud of what's been accomplished here. We'll have been 25 years in Dallas in October, and the growth of the office has been phenomenal, and more on that in the future. But I'm going to engage in succession planning there in October. Right now, I'm working on a listening tour in our offices, developing the vision with Larry, Mike, and the management committee for the Roaring 20s. It's been a great year, and it's hopefully going to continue to be that way, but developing what the firm is going to be in the 20s and 30s. That's the focus. And listening not only to our internal constituencies, but also our clients and how the clients view the future of the legal profession. What I will say is more and more the well-rounded lawyer is what clients are looking for as AI takes over many of the tasks, some of them menial, some of them not so menial, that we did as lawyers. More and more of what we need to be is well-rounded in terms of giving not only legal, but business advice for the clients that we represent, which normally in our firm are businesses or individuals involved with businesses.
Yvette, you're the head of litigation. Are you going to maintain an active docket while you're running the firm too?
Yes. I tell people, they said, how are you going to do this? And I said, well, I'm not going to be running the office in Dallas, but more importantly, I have 3 kids. And my last one is going off to college to Northwestern, go Wildcats.
Oh, wow.
And so I'm an empty nester. And, being a mother and a parent and doing all the things that you're supposed to do at their schools and not having that, I'm going to have so much free time. But it's going to be easy. But I do think that to be a good lawyer and a good leader and a good owner, you have to continue working. And I do board and internal reviews, investigations. I advise directors and I do litigation. But there are some of these other roles that I'm not going to have to do anymore. And so that'll free me up. And I think it's important as a chair to always keep touch with what it is to practice law.
Yvette, because of COVID, have you guys practiced law differently? Help me understand some of the policies right now, but specifically, are you looking at the future of law differently because of what COVID has done?
In terms of practicing law differently, what I would say is during the pandemic, what we have done is like every other firm has done, is done the Zooms, the WebEx, making sure that we've done whatever is necessary to make sure that our clients are being serviced. and including, the remote work policies, having people have, computers, cybersecurity measures, all of that. And I think most of the large firms have done that. What I find more interesting is what is going to remain in terms of what happened in the pandemic. We know there are some clients that have said we're done with Zoom meetings and we expect lawyers to be in the office. You've seen some of those articles, and we need to be responsive to clients. Many of our clients in many industries are there and they're in the office and they are concerned about distracted lawyers that are not focusing on that. So I think that's something that we're going to have to pay close attention to. In the court systems and in litigation, what I found fascinating is, I did a live trial the other day. Both sides wanted it to be live, did not feel comfortable doing it differently. And it was good to be back in the courtroom in a very professional setting. I have done things remote in arbitration and other areas. That has worked well, too, for our clients. So I think people will be more and more able to do some of the litigation work and hearings that are more status conferences and things where clients paid a lot of money and you spend a lot of time just waiting around in the courtroom, and will be interested in doing Zoom if the courts will allow it. And I think that may stay.
That's excellent. Let's just talk about future trends. What future trends to the practice of law or corporate law in general are you seeing, whether it's influenced by COVID or client demand or technology or competitors? I'd love just to hear your quick thoughts on the future.
Well, one of the trends obviously is this issue of virtual, is how much of it are we going to allow people not to be in the office, and maybe people that have never met the client. And I think every firm is sort of still focusing on what's in the best interest of the clients and balancing what's in the best interest of training attorneys and making sure they're great lawyers. I think still we're not going to go back to the every day in the work week in most companies and most firms, because I think it just won't be competitive. And I also think that people will want to save the money from the real estate and have gotten used to saving some money from people not being in there. A trend that I see in the legal world is there is a separation between the haves and the have-nots in terms of law firms. And the reason that's happening is really multifaceted. One is the fixed cost of a lawyer have become sort of the same in terms of, for example, cybersecurity, whether you're a very big firm or a mid-sized firm. And it's hard to expect people in smaller firms to absorb that cost. And so you're seeing more and more firms having to merge to succeed. Also, the war for talent continues to just be crazy. And what people don't realize about that's not that people don't want to go to law school, just that they don't exist. I mean, many of our law schools have gotten smaller because the people weren't born during those periods of time to then go to law school and have the social economic interest. And so there's just less folks out there to hire, and especially when you're narrowing it to the top of the class. I think AI will continue to be a pressure. Many of the tasks that we do have changed even in the last 5 years, whether it's a document review that an algorithm is doing very quickly, or a transactional document that, whether it's compare right or looking at an analysis of a document and saying this is where all the changes need to be, have changed the way that we practice day in, day out. And I think that will continue to accelerate exponentially. And so I think it's going to be more about judgment and more about a different caliber lawyer and trained lawyer that are expected by clients.
Yvette, what advice would you give aspiring law partners? So attorneys, because there's this idea that the opportunity to be a partner, truly be an effective partner inside of a law firm, it's just dwindling quickly. So I'm looking for advice from you about folks who really want the American dream inside of a large corporate law firm, and then also those who maybe are thinking that they have aspiring leadership skills. What advice would you give them?
Well, I always tell people, act like an owner from the first day you walked into an office. Think of it through the lens of the owner. How can you make the job of the leader easier? And I think that's important. It's so easy nowadays to add value to clients with social media, with Google, being able to sit down and say, let me learn everything there is about the company. Don't stop learning because you graduated from law school. I give an example of people that when I first moved to Texas, I had not gone to law school here. So I took the Texas Rules of Procedure, and over the weekend, I read them. And I came back and I annotated them. I came back and I felt like I knew them. And people came back to me and said, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that. That's so impressive. And I thought, I'm a professional. I can't believe that people think reading a 200-page, little book on procedure was that impressive. But it just goes to show you that many people think that they've stopped learning. Also invest in reading books on business and the business of law. Understand how to read P&L, speak the language of your clients, and look at things through the lens of a business person. And I think that is a challenge for many people who say, well, I'm just a lawyer and all I'm going to do is give legal advice. The answer is the legal advice is there, but it has to be through the lens of business and practical advice too, and even learning how to speak that language. The other thing is public speaking. I think it is important to, if you're not taking courses in how to do public speaking at any level, whether it is you're a transactional lawyer, a tax lawyer, or a litigator, is important. We are communicators that generally get paid to speak, and therefore being articulate and making sure that we're making our points in a way that a business person can understand them or a jury is extremely important. Those are the skill sets that I think are important to develop at a young age. Be a lifelong learner, work hard. The time that you invest in working hard in your career pays off. And I give this as an example. If you are a first-year lawyer and one person bills 1,600 hours and the other one bills 2,000 hours, that person has 400 hours of knowledge on you. The second year, you bill 1,800, the other one bills 200. Now they have 200 more. And so it's back to that book that says, the 10,000 hour rule. The faster you get to that experience level, it's almost impossible for people to catch up. So I say, when you're younger, just invest the time in your career. Consider it like you're still in school, but now you're getting paid, and you'll be very happy about it. And nobody will ever be able to catch up with you because you will have run the marathon 5 times and they're just catching up. So there is no shortcut to just spending the time learning your trade.
Yvette, how do you define leadership?
I don't have a definition, but RBG had a great quote that went something to the liking of lead in a way that other people want to naturally join you. And when I read that, I thought, that's how I try to lead. I try to lead in a way that others want to just naturally join me. I try to persuade. Now, you have to fight for things that you care about, and sometimes you have to make tough decisions. People want leaders to lead. You may make mistakes sometimes. You will receive input from many constituencies, and sometimes you'll have to make a hard decision. But it is important to make a decision because, especially during difficult times like the pandemic, there were decisions that had to be made by all of us in firms. Some could be critical, and people say you made a mistake here or there, but leaders are paid to actually get information and make a decision and lead.
Yvette, I had mentioned earlier that you were a board member of a public company. Would you share advice to attorneys who are aspiring to be members of public companies and serve in that way, maybe after they're done practicing or while they're practicing?
To be a lawyer of a public company, you're not going to be naturally attractive just because you're a lawyer, although there are many lawyers that have both started companies, are on boards, or have pivoted. So it is an area that I think is more likely to be involved. What I think most boards are looking for, in the boards that I advise, are people that understand P&L. And so if you have been a leader or you've been on the management committee of your firm or managed P&L of an office or of a firm, so that you understand not law, because you're not going to be practicing law on a board, but you also understand the HR aspects of running a business. Basically, a CEO of a type within your organization, you're going to have a higher chance of getting selected. If you are someone that has been a board advisor to a client and they've seen you in that room, you may be naturally attractive to some of the clients that you have been advising day in, day out. For me, it has been my background in governance and in internal investigations and nominating and governance committees that have gotten me most of the calls in terms of being on boards. And there's a couple of ways to do that. Obviously, there are audit committees and nominating and governance committees within the nonprofit world. And many of the folks in the nonprofit boards are also people that run companies. And so if you are truly interested in that, in addition to taking coursework, focusing in areas that you could add value to a board that's public, it's really about having those experiences. So by the time a headhunter gives a call, you can say, I've been on the audit committee of these nonprofits, or I've been a trustee of a university. So that's what I would focus on if you're interested in being on a board.
Yvette, let's pivot to family. I know, so you're the daughter of two parents from Cuba. Did they follow you to Texas?
Yes, they live in Texas. It took some persuading. It helped that I was the only child, but my parents have now lived here for 2 decades, and it's been great. And my aunt moved, and my grandmother moved. She's now since passed away, but we moved together eventually.
Now, there's very distinct cultures between Miami and like Texas as far as Spanish-speaking backgrounds and locations of where people are born and raised. But I understand that you're a big Texas fan.
Yes.
Care to share any differences? Because I know say Miami's big on Cuba and Dominican Republic and kind of Caribbean and Central America, whereas Texas might be just Mexico. Or I would love to hear your thoughts or things that you love.
Well, what I love about Texas is the can-do spirit. I mean, this is a place where people, got here and there was no reason to stay here. And they built this unbelievably thriving economy in Houston, Dallas, San Antonio. These are top 10 cities. And, when you look at the gross product of what they do, it's amazing. There's a little bit of an indoctrination that happens in Texas that I tease. From the moment your kids are born, they're learning 22 Texas songs. I don't know a Florida song. Nobody taught me those. What my parents most missed was the Cuban food and not having it in every corner. And so whenever I connect through Miami, I have to bring my box of pastelitos and of croquettes for the parents. But in terms of the Hispanic community here in Texas, although it's not Cuban, I mean, it's as diverse as it was in Miami. And it's been really fun, not only to use my language skills in Spanish, but also to develop a wonderful appreciation for Mexican food and Tex-Mex food, which I can't live without now.
And are the kids going to be, so if I understand correctly, your last one is going to school or leaving soon. And so are the kids staying close to home or are they going to college elsewhere?
Well, my oldest has graduated from college already. He started a business and awesome. He's right now in New York, but he comes home to office. He's single. And my middle son is at Georgetown. He is double majoring in government and Spanish, and he intends to go to law school. He's going to get his master's in the spring. And my daughter wants to be a doctor, and she's going to Northwestern, and we're dropping her off mid-September. We love traveling. It has been really fun during COVID to take road trips. I'm not a big road trip person, but my daughter said the other day to me, when did we become national park people? In the last year, we've been to Yellowstone, the Grand Tetons. We've been to Zion, and it's just been really fun to do that. But I enjoy traveling. I enjoy traveling anywhere. I'm a foodie. I enjoy good food. I also enjoy reading and gardening. Those are fun things that I do. But mostly I enjoy being around my family and doing things with them.
That's excellent. So Yvette, last question. What is the kindest thing anyone has ever done for you?
I've been the beneficiary of so much kindness in my life that it would be hard to isolate one thing that anybody has done, to be blunt. I would not be here but for the addition of so many different things that people have done that have been kind to me since I was a child and, this week. So it's hard for me to isolate one kind thing. But what I will say is there have been times in my life where that, like in everybody's life, where you need a support. It could be that you're a new mother. It could be that your mother's going through breast cancer, which I had at a young age. And people came around and supported our family. And that has been an incredible experience. What I would say is my parents have probably done the kindest thing that they've done to support me in my life. They moved from Miami to help with raising our 3 kids so that I could pursue my career and my dreams. It was a challenge when I was a young mother to imagine doing it all. And my parents came in and supported it. And I would not be who I am without that support from my parents and from my husband.
Yvette, it's been an honor and a pleasure today. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you so much, Chris. It has been too. I really appreciate you taking the time to interview me and look forward to talking to you in the future.
Thank you, everyone who listened to this episode of the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. If you haven't already, please take a moment and subscribe. Also, we would love your feedback. You can leave feedback in 3 easy ways. You can go to the blog post on our website. You can click Give Feedback link in the show notes on your device. And then thirdly, you can text the phrase LFL podcast to the number 44222. That's LFL PODCAST. And thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Law Firm Leadership Podcast. This podcast is for education purposes only. This content cannot be used for commercial use without written permission from the Lion Group. If you like this podcast, leave a review on iTunes.